afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Catalog Management webinar. My name is Nick, and I'll be doing the presentation for you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, everyone will be on mute. So if you do have any questions at any point during the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the questions area. And at the end of the class, I'll go through and answer any questions that have come up. I will also be sending out a PDF of what we're covering today, so that way you have some documentation to refer back to on your own time as well. Again, today's class is on catalog management. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to get right into how we can edit our catalogs and make adjustments to it. So Envisioneer ships with a comprehensive catalog of elements to help you achieve your design goals quickly. Every element in the catalog is completely customizable, and you can create new elements on the fly as well. The topics that we're going to talk about today is going to be adding, editing, and deleting catalog elements from the catalog you're working with, organizing the elements in the catalog, importing elements from one catalog to another via the BIM file import-export feature, importing elements from the internet, and then using the Save Element to Catalog feature. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at how to customize the catalog. So when you select a building tool in Envisioneer, the catalog panel on the right side of the screen displays a wide selection of elements for you to insert. Elements are organized into groups so that you can find what you're looking for easily. Some groups have multiple subgroups for further organization. You can add, delete, and rename groups, and even shift them around in the catalog. Each group, which is marked with a folder icon, contains a list of elements, and you can add, edit, and delete elements to suit your design needs. The catalog also contains various libraries, such as the Materials Library and the Text Styles Library. These libraries contain items and settings that you can choose while using certain tools in the software. We're going to look at using the Element Manager. So the Element Manager provides access to all of the elements in the catalog. It includes all the tools you need to customize groups and elements in the catalog. And you can access the Element Manager in a couple of ways. You can simply, in the catalog panel on the right-hand side of your screen, simply right-click and select Element Manager, or you can go to File, Catalogs, Element Manager. Both options will open up that catalog for you. And here we can see the Element Manager dialog. So once this is open, we're going to go in, and we're already in the cabinets section of this library, but I'm going to scroll through so that you can see exactly what we're working with here. So the Element Manager is, again, going to have all of the elements that are shipped with the catalog. So as you can see, under Appliances, we have all the different appliances that are shipped with the catalog by default. And inside of the actual appliances are the actual groups. And in those groups, you're going to see the elements themselves. And they're just categorized and sorted by what they are. So refrigerators, cooking, range hoods, so on and so forth. We're going to look at the cabinet section. And once I'm in the cabinet section, I'm just going to open up the plus sign beside my single door cabinet. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to select the group here, and I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to say Add Group. And when I select Add Group, this ensures that the group is added to the cabinets folder and not to another group. So this is going to create a whole new folder at the very bottom that we can give it a specific name to now. So in here, I'm just going to type in Custom Cabinets. Once I have that specified, I can left click anywhere, and that will now create that new Custom Cabinets folder. I can now right click on the custom cabinets, and I can now select Add Elements. And when I select the Add Element option, you can see the Define Element dialog shows up. This Define Element dialog will allow you to choose how you want to create this cabinet. So the first option is cabinets, and this is going to be creating a cabinet using the parametric options that are associated within Envisioneer. This is just going to take a cabinet using our basic geometry for a cabinet, and then you can edit its size, its shape, its color. All of those components that make up that cabinet are done parametrically through Envisioneer. There's also a custom block option. And what this does is it will actually allow you to select an element from the internet. So if you have a cabinet that was created in AutoCAD, a DWG, DXF, 3ds, or SKP file format, you can actually bring that block in as well. This option is very handy if you're inserting like a bathroom vanity that has everything associated to it. So it has the cabinetry, the sink, the faucet, all of that is already contained in one block. Then you'd want to use this custom block option to bring it in. We're going to actually just create a new cabinet using the Envisioneer parametric option. So I'm just going to select cabinets and I'm going to say OK. When I do this, the cabinets dialog will now display, and I can see the different options that allow me to adjust how this cabinet is going to be created. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually adjust this so that it's its own special cabinet. So we're going to define the cabinet's property starting with its dimensions. You can also customize the cabinet's leaf style, detail, finish, and insertion behavior. I always like to turn this into a rendered outline view. I just find it shows a little bit more detail, so I always select rendered outline. And what that does is allows me to actually show what this door is going to look like based on the leaf style that I have selected. So under the basic tab, I have type 1 selected, and that is just a type 1, which is just a single door. If I select type 2, it's going to now create a double door. Type 3 is a single door with a drawer. So again, each type that you select will update that preview for you. You can also go down in the property section and increase the size of the cabinet's width, height, and depth to meet what it is that you want that cabinet to look like. You can also select to show the door or not show the door. So if you want this to be an open cabinet or a dishwasher cabinet, you can actually remove the door so that way you can slide your dishwasher right in. I'm going to turn the door back on. I'm going to change this to be 1/2 inch. So you can see once I change that to 1/2 inch, it's going to reduce the spacing between the door and the edge of the actual cabinet. I want to actually go into the leaf as well, and I just want to show you how you can adjust the leaf as well. So here we have a flat type leaf. We have what is currently selected, the panel 1, and we have that set to recessed. There's panel 2, which shows you the arch top. Panel 3 is arch top and bottom. Then we have glass options as well that you can bring in. Now, I said panel 1 is set to recessed. There's also a dado option, so you can actually show this as a dated edge if you wanted to do that. I'm going to set mine back to recessed, and then I can control the actual spacing. So how wide do I want that rail to be? I actually want that to be 2 inches. So I'm just going to type in 2 and then press tab to accept that 2-inch change. And that is now creating that recessed panel door for me. We can also go through the details and specify exactly what we want to see with this cabinet. So do I want to show the countertop? If I do, how thick do I want that countertop to be? Do I want to show a backsplash on this counter? If I do, how thick do I want that to be? And how high do I want that backsplash to go? Am I going to show a nosing on this countertop? Again, if I do, what's the thickness, height, and radius of that countertop? If I wanted to show shelves in here, I can select the shelves option. Since I have a door on here, you don't necessarily have to show the shelves. That's why it's off by default. If I went back to basic and I turned off the door and I went back to details and I said show shelves, now I can see the actual shelves and I can increase how many shelves I want to see in that cabinet. I'm going to go back to basic, show the door, and go back to details. We also have a toe space option. So in here, you can actually go in and adjust how you want this toe space to be displayed as well. So right now we have it as an indent, and it's being indented at a depth of 3 inches with a height of 4 inches, we can say, no, I just want that to have nothing. It's just going to be a flat panel. Or I can say I want this to be a floating cabinet in my kitchen. Again, you have a lot of options to play with here to adjust how this cabinet is going to be inserted. I'm just going to leave mine at indent. And then the other option we have here is show hardware. And by default, this one is using just a circle door pull. And this isn't something that you can modify. It's just a parametric part of that cabinet. So it's always going to be the same size. The only control you have over this handle is moving it up or down in, on that door itself. And that's what the A value will do. You can change it to be a box or a cylinder if you wanted to. So it just changes the type of pull. But again, these pulls are not going to be edited, so you can't adjust their actual size or anything like that. If you wanted to, and I've done this in some of the models that I've created, I've actually said none to this, so I don't actually show the hardware. And what I will do is I will import a block that's showing me the hardware that I want, so be it a different style of pull. I will then elevate it into place and then array it across my cabinets where I want them to go, and then move them accordingly. So once you have one placed, you can then array it and adjust exactly where you want it to go. Another option is if this is going to be a block that you're going to import from an outside source, make sure it has the hardware assigned to it in that program. And then when you bring it in, the hardware will also show up. We also have the appearance tab, and this is basically where you're going to be able to go in and adjust how this cabinet is going to look. So again, you can come through here and adjust all the different appearance options for the different components of that cabinet. We also have line work, so you can go through and adjust how this line work is going to look based on the 2D portion of this design. So when you're looking at it in 2D, how is it going to be displayed? And we also have quantity. So how do you want this to be quantified? And again, you can go through and create the different elements, the different information that you want for that element. And the last tab is the behavior tab. And this is an important tab because since we're working with a cabinet, how do we want this cabinet to be associated to other cabinets and to walls? So by default, this one is set to back. So this is a base cabinet. So the back of the cabinet is going to snap to the wall. So anytime I add this cabinet in, it's automatically going to put the back of the cabinet up against the wall. I can adjust this if I wanted to. So if I wanted this to be an island cabinet, then I would just set this to none. So that way, whenever I bring it in, it's not going to automatically try and snap to a wall. It's just going to allow me to place it wherever I want. And then the cabinets are smart themselves. They will snap together. So the side of a cabinet will snap to a side of a cabinet. Another option here is if I just go in here and I just change this size to be, let's just say 2'1", just to give it something different here. I can go in and say I want to adjust this to have a different name. So I can type in the actual name if I wanted to, or I can just click auto name and it will automatically pick a name for me based on the settings that I have specified here. So what do I want this to show? So the name sample is the size by type of cabinet. So that's why we're seeing 2'1" by 2'11¼ base cabinets. You can change this again. I mean, you don't have to keep things exactly as they are. You can just go in here and say, I want this to be a 2'1" base cabinet, like so. And then you can actually simply say OK, and that's now going to save that cabinet in the folder for you under our custom cabinets. I'm just going to go in here and we can now select this custom cabinets and we can actually delete it out. So if you ever wanted to remove something from the element manager, you can simply select the folder that houses the elements, or you can select the individual elements. So if you have multiple elements in here that you want to get rid of, you can simply select the element and say right-click, delete, and that will allow you to delete each one individually. But if you want to remove the entire folder, you can select that folder, right-click, and select delete, and that will remove just that folder from the catalog. I'm going to say OK to the element manager. And we're going to now look at the library manager. So the library manager provides access to all of the libraries in the catalog. Types of libraries include the materials, the line styles, the text styles, dimension styles, labels, profiles, light sources, assemblies, and a number of different framing libraries. And again, you can access the library manager by right-clicking in the catalog and selecting Library Manager, or under File, Catalogs, select Library Manager. Once the Library Manager loads, you can see that it by default is set up to be opening to the materials part of the library. And here you can actually just click on libraries and you can see all of the different libraries that you can edit. So again, by default, it opens up to the library of materials, but we can also control the patterns, manufacturers, your line types, line weights, layers. Again, a lot of different controls, and these are just your actual properties that associate to how some of these elements are going to be created. So what materials are assigned to it, what line weights are assigned to it. That's what the library manager does. I'm just going to click cancel on here because I don't need to make any changes to that. And the next thing we're going to talk about is organizing the catalog. So not only can you add, edit, and delete groups and elements in the catalog, but you can also reorganize the catalog to suit your needs. As you add groups and elements, the catalog can become disorganized. So you may want to reorganize elements into new groups or within their own group, or ship groups up and down in the list. In larger offices where multiple designers are working with the same catalog, the organization of the catalog is critical. Creating an arrangement that can easily be navigated and that is clear of irrelevant content will go a long way in streamlining the design process and preventing discrepancies. So we're going to create a new group and we're going to call it steel walls. And then we're going to move some existing walls into it. So I'm going to go to my file, catalogs, and we're going to select element manager. And in the element manager, I'm going to go to the walls folder. So I'm just going to minimize that, scroll down to the bottom here, and I'm going to go into my walls folder. And in here, we can see that under my interior option, I have a steel framed walls folder already. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a new group underneath the walls portion. So I'm going to move this steel frame basically out by creating a new steel framed wall folder. So I'm just going to go right click and I'm going to select add group. And as you can see, it adds a whole new group to the very bottom of that list. And I'm going to call this one steel framing, something a little bit different than the other one. And I'm just going to type in steel framing. So I've now created a new group. From here, what I can do is I can now find that steel framed folder and I can select that wall. And I can now take that wall and move it by left clicking and holding my mouse button down. And I can actually drag that element into that new folder. Again, I can left click on the element that I want to move, left click and hold on it, move it, and I just drop it right into that new steel framing folder. And that now takes that element out of that folder and moves it into its new folder. You can also move elements up or down within the group as well. So let's say for whatever reason I wanted the 6-inch wall first because it's the wall that I use most often, then I would just select that and move it so that it sits on top of the wall above. And when I let go, it'll move that wall up and drop that wall below it. So you can also not only reorganize elements from group to group, but you can also organize elements within a group as well. And I'm just going to say cancel to that because I don't want to keep that change. Just a quick tip on that So you may want to move your most commonly used groups and elements to the top of the list for easy access. And what we mean by that is if you use, when we look at walls as an example, and I open up the walls folder, as you can see, there's quite a bit of different types of walls that are available in the program. But let's say you hardly ever use masonry walls, you're always using stucco walls in your area. So instead of having stucco be the third option in the list, you can move that up so that it's the first option in the list, so it's the first thing you see, and you can select from there. That would be something beneficial if that would be a scenario that you use most often. So next, we're going to look at importing elements from other catalogs. So when you receive new releases from CADsoft, you will also receive an updated catalog with each release. If you've already created a customized catalog, you may not want to use the new one. You may, however, want to retrieve some of the new elements from it, or copy your customized elements to the new catalog. You can use the Export BIM file tool to copy a catalog's elements to a BIM file. You can then import those elements into another catalog using the Import BIM file tool. The BIM file acts as a shuttle between catalogs. So again, we're going to go in and I'm just going to go File, and I'm going to say Export, and I'm going to say Catalog to BIM. And when I do this, this will open up the Export Items to a BIM file dialog box. So what we're basically doing here is, let's say we are in our existing catalog. So this is the catalog that I use regularly. I've added elements to it, but CADsoft's come out with a new version and they have a new catalog. They've updated the new catalog with a lot of new beneficial products that I want to take advantage of, but I don't want to lose the stuff that I've already added into my catalog. So what you would do here is, in your version that has your catalog, you would open it up and you would see your catalog name here. Inside that, you're going to see all of the elements that are a part of your catalog. You would then go to the appropriate folder that you want. And as an example, let's say this counter depth fridge is something that you've created and added to your catalog, and you want to make sure that this goes to the new Envisioneer catalog as well. So you would select that individual element. Or if you've customized all of the refrigerators within that folder, you can select the entire folder. What you're going to see is a transfer button. And this transfer button will take whatever is selected and transfer it to a blank BIM file. So right now I have just the refrigerators selected. So it's going to take all of these refrigerators, and when I say transfer, it's going to take all of those refrigerators and it's going to apply them to this catalog. So now everything that I had selected will bring it over. If I selected the entire appliance section and I hit transfer, it will bring in absolutely everything under appliances. So now I'm going to see all of those appliances as well. So whatever you select is what's going to be transferred over when you select that transfer button. And you can see the arrow that points in the direction that this is going. So it's going from your master catalog to a BIM file. When I say OK, it's going to ask me to save this to a location. So I'm going to save this right to my desktop, and I'm just going to call this catalog management webinar. And then I'm just going to say save. And that now creates that new BIM file. So now I open up the new version of Envisioneer that I've received from CADsoft. It's got its brand new fancy catalog in it with all its new elements, and I want to bring in my elements. So now in my new version, I go File, Import, and I select BIM to Catalog. And I go to the desktop where I have that BIM file saved. I say Catalog Management Webinar BIM, say Open. And what you're going to see here is it's going to look pretty much identical. But you're going to see that it says import items from a BIM file. And then over here, you can see the transfer option is going in the opposite direction. So I have my new catalog open. I have the BIM file that I created with all my elements in it. And I can now go in and simply select the word document and hit transfer. And it will take everything, elements and libraries included, and transfer it over. Or I can say, well, I don't really need everything right this second. I only need a couple of elements. So I'm just going to open up the folder and I'm going to select the individual elements that I want to bring over. And then you can hit transfer and transfer just that one element over. And that's how you can import and export files using the import and export BIM file object, or import export BIM file option. So another option here, I'm just going to cancel that, is importing blocks found on the internet. So the internet is a great resource for objects such as furniture and appliances. You can import blocks that are in DWG, DXF, 3DS, or SKP format into Envisioneer. I always recommend using the website 3D Warehouse. And if I just type in 3D Warehouse here, this will bring up the SketchUp 3D Warehouse. And this is a great tool because these blocks are all created by users. They post them up here. All you have to do is basically create an account, and then you can download these actual blocks. And you can find any block that you want, and you can bring it in. So if I wanted to bring in, let's say this desk as an example, I can go in here and I can say, I want to download this desk. Now, again, you need to have an actual account to do this. So you need to create an account here to add this in. I'm not going to bother doing that right now. I already have a block that we're going to bring in. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say File, Import, and I'm going to say Object Wizard. And when you select this Import Object Wizard option, what this will allow you to do is it will allow you to add in any kind of new element. So I'm just going to say I want this to be bar stool. I know what that is. And I'm going to say I want this to be an interior furniture. This is important because when you create these elements, this is going to store it in the proper spot in the catalog. So if you know exactly what it is that you're going to be importing, make sure you specify what element type it is. So if you're going to be importing a light fixture, make sure you go to interior lighting. If it's going to be exterior furniture, make sure you export or you bring it into the exterior furniture section. Once you're done that, you can then hit select. And this will allow you to select the block that you want to bring in. And on my desktop, I have blocks 2020, and I'm just going to bring in this modern bar stool, and I'm going to say open. If you are importing a SketchUp block, you're going to see this force import of SketchUp file as single-sided, and in brackets we say recommended. The reason for this is when you create a SketchUp block, SketchUp has two sides to a face. So it has a front side and a reverse side. We really only need to see one side. If you bring it in as a double-sided, it is basically doubling the size of the file. So that's why we have this option here. It reduces the size of the file that you're bringing in. You do have to be careful with the blocks that you bring in though. If it is a file that you have not created, it's a file that you found online, and you bring it in and you notice that you're actually seeing through some of the block, that's because the wrong side of the face is being displayed. So making sure that the right side of the face is on the outside is something a lot of people take advantage of when they create their blocks. But some of the lower quality blocks that you'll find aren't going to follow that rule very well. So if you see through an object, you know it's because the faces are wrong. You can download the SketchUp app for free, open up the file and edit it yourself if you wanted to do that, or you can just find a new block that resembles what you're looking for. Again, I'm just going to say force import to be, and I'm going to say yes, and we can see that block. Now, this is a block that I actually created in SketchUp, so I know that the faces are correct, and as you can see, I've also included a 2D plan view. And we're going to get to that in 1 second here. So if you're importing a DWG file, you're going to get a block import options dialog box. And here is where you can just define parameters that determine how the object will be created. So it'll be by layers or by materials. You'll be able to adjust its actual size as well. But since we're using a SketchUp block, we're not going to get that dialog. We're just going to be able to move right on to the next option, which is orient your elements. And the Orienter element option is basically allowing you to control how this element is going to be inserted. So here we can see, and I always try to point this out as the red section is going to be your floor, and the blue section would be any kind of a wall. So obviously you want the chair to have the feet on the floor. So you don't want to insert like this, so you would use the arrows to flip it around. You could flip this around all the way so that the back of the chair is up towards the back of the wall if you wanted to. Again, that's a preference that you can make. The main thing is to make sure that the feet are touching the floor and not pointing towards the wall. You can then click next, and this is going to allow you to control the component visibility in 3D. Now, again, like I mentioned, I created this block in SketchUp, so I took advantage of some of the things that I've learned using SketchUp. First thing I've learned with SketchUp is this SketchUp default color will always come over. No matter what I do in SketchUp, I can apply a material or a color to every single surface that I want to. This will always come over in Envisioneer. It is something that is locked in the file of the SketchUp block that you can't get rid of. So to combat that, what I do is I always leave one portion as that SketchUp default color. And that's why my seat is white. That is the SketchUp default color. The SketchUp edges refer to the actual lines. And I've made sure that those lines are set up on that layer. So that way when I just turn them off, I don't see that 2D plan view anymore in my 3D view. I can also go through and take advantage of the edit feature in here and say, double clicking in there, I can say this is the 2D plan. And then again, I know that that's the seat. So I'm just going to say seat. And I can now start going through and turning off so I know what it is that I'm editing. So this is just going to be the bracing. And then here I have the edges. So when you import something like this, and I have this set to wood, so I have the wood surface going to go one direction, and then on the edges, I may want it to be a different material along the edges. That's why it's separated like this with two different materials. Again, not something you have to do, but just pointing it out, you can control the actual edges as well. So I'm going to call this wood edge, and I'm going to call this wood face. And then I can say next. And when you click next, it's now going to ask you to control the component visibility in plan view. Since I created that 2D plan view, the next option is available for me. If I do not have a plan view, I need to create one. And I can do that by using the outline tool or the slice option and adding it in. Again, I don't need to do that because it has its 2D plan view. I can just click next and then finish. And now attached to my cursor is that chair. And when I bring it in, I can drop it into my file wherever I want to, and I can see how that is going to look if I just move my camera into place. So I can see that chair in the program. I can go in and double click on that and bring up the actual properties of it and start adjusting exactly how I want this to be adjusted. So I can go into the appearance and say, I want this to have a specific appearance for the seat. So I want this to use a specific material. And we're going to say finishes. I'm just going to say I got a white melamine color in here, which is going to give it a bit of a glossy look to it. And I'm going to say OK. The other thing I want to point out in here is mapping. Anytime you bring in a texture or any element from SketchUp, it's going to be set to predefined. You'll want this be set to box. This will just help with how that material is going to be mapped. So I would do that for all of these options here. I'm just going to highlight them all. Select the first option, hold your shift key down, select the last option, and then go to mapping, set to box, say OK. And then I want this to be wood. And I'm just going to bring up the wood option here, and I'm just going to select this African limbo and add that in. And again, I can go in and adjust how this is actually going to be created. So if I wanted to adjust the height of that texture, I would adjust all of that in here to help further refine how this chair is going to look. Under line work, again, how is this going to look in my 2D plan view? I highlight everything and then I just go over to my layer option, and I want this to be a part of my interior furniture layer, and I say okay. So now when I import this into my working drawing sheets, it's going to be on a layer that I can turn on and off easily, and it's also going to be distinguishable because it's that blue color, and I know that that blue line color represents interior furniture. I can then say okay, and that creates that new element. So the next thing I want to talk about is saving elements that you have customized in your drawing to your catalog. So as you can see, this element was added in, and it wasn't actually added in through the catalog. I added it in through the File, Import, Object Wizard. This adds it to the file, not to the catalog. So to save this to the catalog, all I have to do is go to File, Catalogs, and I can then say Save Element to Catalog. When I select that option, I can then click on the element that I've inserted, and it will ask me, do you want to save this bar stool to the catalog? And I'm going to say yes. It'll then ask you, do you want to save anything else to the catalog? In this case, no, I'm done. I can then say finish. And what that does is it's now taken that bar stool and it's added it to the interior furnitures folder for me. And I can now go in and say, I want to right click, element manager. I have this bar stool and I want this to be a part of my dining room option. So I'm just going to open up my dining room and I'm going to bring this bar stool in. Again, left click and holding, and I'm just going to drop it into the chairs option, and it will now add that bar stool to the chairs folder and clean up my catalog for me. So now that new bar stool is going to be a part of my catalog forever. So that takes care of everything I wanted to talk about in regards to catalog management. So I'm just going to go over a quick overview of what we've talked about today, and then I'll open up the question section. And it looks like there are a couple of questions already, so we'll get to those. So the catalog that ships with Envisioneer is just a starting point in your design endeavors. You can control the catalog's organization as well as its content to suit your design needs. Some points to remember: the Element Manager is the key tool in organizing and customizing your building elements. The Library Manager is the key tool in customizing items such as your materials and your textiles. You can add, edit, and remove groups and move them around within the catalog as well. Elements have numerous properties that you can edit to create customized elements as well. You can transfer content from one catalog to another using the BIM file import and export feature. You can also import DWG, DXF, 3DS, and SKP files into your catalog as well. And if you've edited and inserted elements into your drawing, you can save that element to your catalog using the Save Element to Catalog tool. So I'm going to close this down. I'm going to say okay to that. And then I'm going to go in and see what questions we have here. First question is, can you transfer from version 14 to version 13? I don't believe it is backwards compatible. I only believe you can go forwards. So yes, you would not be able to take a 14 catalog and BIM file and bring it into 13. So if you noticed on our website, when you look at the BIM file section in there, it tells you the version. That's for that reason, because you cannot take a 14 file and bring it into 13 or anything before that. I'll leave that question section open for a couple more minutes just to make sure that everyone's got their questions in. Like I mentioned, I will be sending out a PDF as well, so you will have some documentation to refer back to that covers everything we talked about today as well. Okay, so I'll just leave that open for just another minute just to make sure there isn't any other questions coming in. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for attending today. Hopefully everything we talked about today was helpful for you. Again, thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thank you and have a great day.